Good evening. Welcome to the May 14, 2018 Los Angeles City Health Commission meeting. May I please have roll call?
Grimig, Hisrich, Cotto, Mandel,
Present.
Shannon, Vic,
Here.
6 members present and a quorum.
Thank you. Next item is approval of the minutes from the April 9th, 2018 meeting.
So moved.
All in
I'll
favor?
second.
Perfect. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition, abstentions? Minutes are approved. Any neighborhood council comments? No. Any public comment? Thank you. Wayne? Will Wayne be giving a public comment?
Yeah, he can't get through the ropes.
Actually, I can't. Yeah, please remove him. We're not having that today. Will you be giving your public comment, sir?
There's a rope that cannot be crossed. If I were to cross it, I would be arrested. And then you tell me that I have to be thrown out because you can't take speaker cards, you can't run a Brown Act meeting, and you got to keep fucking with the state law the way you do it. That's the definition of a dumb cunt. That's exactly what a dumb cunt does. A dumb cunt does not listen to somebody that tells them what's going on. They listen to themselves. See, that's what a dumb cunt does. And that's why when I'm sitting here and the members of the public are standing here, you can't even go into this building. They got it locked. The building right now is locked. Members of the public cannot get into this facility to attend this meeting. You put a rope up. You know, and as a black man, that's very offensive. I got all these trees because I'm a white nigger, for the record. I'm a white nigger. That's what Herb Wesson did to me, for the record. And you put a fucking rope up, you bring 2 cops in armed, and then you want to throw people out. That's called the Bain Act, 52.1 of the Civil Code, and you're violating it. Right, Mr. City Attorney? That's a violation of 52.1. It's a violation of 54.950 of the Government Code. And I'm over in federal court suing 3 lawsuits. And I can't get the dumb fucking cunt judge to give me a goddamn verdict in my favor to remove myself for damages. I don't get no damages. So I'm sitting here after 6 o'clock, an attorney with 22 years experience, valedictorian of my class, sitting there like a homeless nigger in the middle of City Hall waiting to get my restitution. And all you people do is look at me with this dumb fucking look on your face. Why am I here? I'm here to say, fuck you, 42 USC 1983.
Okay. Any other public comment? Okay. you. Okay, moving on to item number 1, discussion and or action regarding potential areas of focus and next steps for the Los Angeles City Health Commission. We'll take public comment from Adam Cohen.
Good evening. My name is Adam Cohen. I am the Director of Advocacy and Policy Research for AIDS Healthcare Foundation. You might have seen in the news, I believe it was in Valentine's Day of this year, that AHF opened its first transitional housing project for homeless and low-income individuals who, with a priority for folks with chronic health issues, including HIV, because based on the social determinants of health as well as the needs of the LA County people living with HIV, low-income housing is one of the greatest needs and also helps with retention and care, so taking their medications to prevent further transmission. The LA City Health Commission's annual report from 2016 included a quote, "A goal of the Los Angeles Health Commission is to improve health outcomes for homeless individuals through city council action designed to reduce barriers to health access and housing." But I do not believe that this report was ever presented to the City Council, which I think is part of the requirement in which they should be declaring a state of emergency. And I know that the voters did pass Measure HHH, but I don't think anything's happened quite yet with that. So I'm hoping that because of the primary purpose of the Health Commission, that you would advise the City Council on any decisions related to housing for low-income and homeless individuals in LA City. You are a collective voice as health professionals, and I know that there's been issues regarding money, support, and other limitations, but there's a million reasons not to do something, and I hope that you at least find one reason to take action and inform the City Council about the best approaches to address this epidemic that we have in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Wayne?
So again, the biggest thing is riding public transportation and having nowhere to take a shit. I mean, you ride these trains and these buses, and you spend all this money, and there's nowhere to take a shit. So what are people doing? Poor people, homeless people are riding transportation, and they're taking a shit, and they're wiping their hand. And as a result, you're getting an increase of E. coli, you're getting an increase of syphilis, because people can't wash their hands with hot soap and goddamn water like Grandma used to tell you. Now see, before I became a white nigger, they used to tell me, you gotta wash your hands with hot water and soap before each meal. How many people in this homeless community have access to a bathroom? How many women have access to a bathroom? And you rich, stupid motherfuckers like yourselves go home to your guard-gated community. You don't give a fuck about homeless. They're all over the place, right outside in the South Lawn, the homeless. Where are they supposed to use the bathroom? Where are they supposed to take a shit? When are they supposed to take a piss? There are homeless women that I know around here that cannot use the bathroom after 10 o'clock. They got to hold it till 5:30 in the morning. This is the inhumane cause of what Eric Garcetti wants to spread as a presidential candidate across the United States. He doesn't want you to take a shit. He doesn't want you to wash your hands. He wants you to die in the fucking streets as a poor fucking slave so him and his Jews can take over everything else they haven't taken over with in this government. And what do we got? We got an Aunt Thomasina running this commission. That's what it is. You get an Uncle Tom, you get an Aunt Thomasina, and they go, oh, look, I'm black. No, you're not black. You were white Jewish, whiter than me, that I used to be. I'm the nigger. You're the sellout. You're the Aunt Thomasina. Fuck this commission and fuck the mayor.
Mickey Jackson, are you here for item number 1? No, okay. 3 accidents on the Hollywood Freeway. Okay, come forward.
Hello, Mickey Jackson. I'm with AHF, AIDS Healthcare Foundation. I'm following Adam, but one more colorful speaker in between. It seems that this commission of all commissions would be the ideal one to help deal with homelessness. because homelessness, as I'm sure Adam explained, has such an impact on health and public health. And yet, this commission is being starved. It's being starved of resources. It's being starved. And I have been going to committees, including the budget hearing, advocating that this commission be funded. The report that you got, it is scandalous that it hasn't been presented. Scandalous. And in this crisis of homelessness, it's just unbelievable. The health impacts on all of Los Angeles from allowing this horrible plague of homelessness to increase and increase, because it has increased 46% during Eric Garcetti's time in office, is something that the UN has cited as a horrible crisis and is shameful. And I think your advocacy, your strenuous advocacy for people who are homeless, for the health, because it isn't just their health. I will not put it quite as graphically as the former speaker did, but people living on the streets in inadequate sanitation is a threat to the health of the entire community. So as people go home to their very nice houses, that may not protect them. It's the duty of the city, and it's your duty as commissioners, and I know you care, to advocate and take care of all the citizens.
Thank you. Okay, so from the previous meeting, from last meeting and this meeting, I've taken some time to look at a lot of the documents. I've taken into consideration the conversations that we've had regarding our next steps in moving forward with the commission. And I was trying to find tangible deliverables, things that we could do tangibly that would have some impact on the work that is happening in the city. I don't know how we fix that. You guys are in the direct sunlight. And so maybe, yeah.
You can come over here.
You want to move this one?
Yeah.
What if we move in one?
Yeah.
Yeah, or Matt, you can move two over.
Much better. Okay. So I reviewed the previous report that we have done, and we haven't done one since that report in 2015, 2016. As some of the comments, public comments have mentioned, we did do a lot of recommendations for addressing the homelessness issue and a variety of other issues. But again, as I was looking at this, I was trying to determine if there was something tangible that we could move on and move forward. And I looked at page 19 of the report, and it talked about ensuring, for instance, and to me this also works with one of our directives to make sure that the County Department of Public Health is working effectively with the city, to make sure that the city departments and city council offices have this direct connection to the Department of Public Health. That seemed like a very tangible deliverable. And to also this joint meeting or hearing with the county's health agency integrated advisory board also seemed like a tangible deliverable. So that was two things that I had looked at today. I also had noticed that in my council district, and I'm sure in others, that there are a lot of fatalities and accidents, cars versus bicycles, that also need to be lifted up. And I know there's Vision Zero, and there's other things that are happening in the city around these issues, but how can we lend our voice in order to make sure that this is being elevated? I do want to hear from the rest of the commission on what they think we need to move forward on, but again, I'm looking for things that are very tangible and that we can do, given the fact that we are, half capacity at this point in time. We don't have the funding or the extra folks to help us sit and write a robust report such as the one we did back in 2015, 2016? How can we do some work and get some things pushed forward effectively? So having said what I said, I am very interested in hearing what others have to say about our future direction. Yes, Commissioner Shannon.
Thank you. So on September 1st, we had a retreat, and we prioritized 3 issues: Chromium 6, housing adjacent to freeways, and STI STDs. And that was a vote of the commission. So I don't think we can just abandon that. I mean, I know it's been 8 months, but it just seems like the council has directed us to do an annual report, and it's not a request. I mean, it's part of the ordinance. So, I mean, that's something that we need to deliver, or the council needs to vote not to require a report. Is that correct?
And that's, I think that is something that we should consider.
Okay. And so I would just say that. I mean, I'm all for tangible, making
No, I
sure
understand.
that, I'm all for making sure that the work that we take on is something that we can complete.
Absolutely.
But I also think that, A, we can't just disregard a vote of the commission. B, we are mandated by an ordinance, which I think we have to take seriously. And it's not necessarily something that we can't do because we've done it. And it's not something that we can't necessarily go out and raise money for because we've done that as well. So I would just leave it at that then.
Okay. So what are the recommendations for moving forward on Chromium 6, housing adjacent to freeways, and STDs and STIs? What are the tangible deliverables that this body can achieve at half capacity moving forward? I think that's what the bigger question is. I think I agree. We don't need to take any of this lightly, but to be totally realistic, and I think we've talked about this in previous meetings, all of us are here because we want to be here and want to do well for the city, but our capacity is limited. So I would really like to hear what that looks like so that we can move forward. We do have an intern there's one intern that can help, but again, we had a much larger commission when this report was written. Yes.
So I guess I would propose on Chromium 6, and we could do this for each one of these, is that we have, so I know Udo Akhenatuk, who is our petroleum administrator, had brought this to the commission originally about 8 months ago. I know that they're still working on it. It's been in the paper for other cities, not for the city of Los Angeles, but in other cities. I've seen it in the Los Angeles Times as a huge issue. So I would recommend maybe bringing him back, seeing what still needs to be done, what their recommendation is, because I think the power of this commission is to make recommendations to the city council. So if we could, based on bringing in experts and doing a little bit of our own research, go back to the city council and make recommendations and maybe create, like on each one of these subject headings, a mini report, which could then be compiled later into a big report. That might actually be something that's consumable for the city council as like an issue. And also we would have the backing of the petroleum administrator for the city. And then we could bring these as mini reports to the council and then compile them later so that we're adhering to the actual mandate from the ordinance.
Okay. And would that similar structure or pattern follow for the other two, creating a mini report? Okay.
That's what I would recommend.
Thoughts?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Commissioner Kato.
When they did have that presentation, didn't we as the Health Commission make a recommendation that was supposed to go to the council? Yes.
So on November 13th, 2017, Health Commission met, I believe in this room, maybe the other room. We had a meeting in another room at one point, and adopted, at least according to the documents I have here, a motion recommending to the city's planning commission, the city council's planning and land use committee, that a setback be established to protect children from effects of freeways adjacent to housing. We discussed and took an action and transmitted a recommendation to two bodies or two entities, decision-making entities in the city at our November 13th meeting. That is, I'm not saying that's the complete and total action that can be taken on the issue, but there was an action taken.
Got it.
I'm also quick to acknowledge I'm unfamiliar with the status of the council deliberations, and I believe it's City Department of Building Services, the Building and Safety, that was developing protocol regarding the approval for a certificate of occupancy for buildings regarding the HVAC system and the level of filtration needed across. But we attempted to, and I can't say successfully or unsuccessfully, but we attempted to influence that policymaking process at our November 13th meeting.
Okay.
Regarding the other items, I'm unfamiliar with the status.
Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
and also to Chromium 6, didn't we make a recommendation about a setback for that as well?
Chromium 6?
No, the petroleum, no?
No, I think
When they
that's
had the-
separate.
No?
We did for oil drilling.
Yeah, the oil drill, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
that was to go back to our council members and advocate for the 2,500 foot setback.
Right, okay.
Okay. So then the next, I guess, to me, the second part of this question is, if this is your recommendation, Commissioner Shannon, which is great, we need to figure out how to split this work up. I'm not sure, I want to take the temperature of the commission. I don't know if folks are on board with that or not. Yes, Commissioner Cox.
Can I bring up another item just for discussion?
Yes.
Okay, these 3 items that we agreed on at the retreat 8 months ago, but, like right now, and as our public speakers have commented on, the hottest issue is about homelessness, right? And so, I would somehow like to include this. I don't want to overwhelm us, but still, it's just the thing now. So, I'd like to feel how my fellow commissioners feel about including the 4th area of, working with the homelessness situation.
Commissioner
Yeah,
Research?
I agree about the homelessness. I'm trying to think, what are some of the specific things? For example, we mentioned sobering centers, which is related for the folks. How many of them are there? I couldn't tell you. There's one that I'm aware of. Maybe if somebody could tell us how many there are, we could encourage the city council to encourage the development of sobering centers if they're getting used. There's one, as far as I know, at Skid Row area. I don't think there's any in the valley or anywhere else for that matter in the Hollywood area. I really don't know. It'd be useful to know and possibly address that issue. Similarly, the issue of public toilets. I don't know how many there are, or where they're located, or what the accessibility. I mean, frankly, it's hard to find a toilet that's accessible, and God knows if you're living on the street, it must be doubly difficult. I have no idea how many there are or where they're located. It seems to me if we had some way to count that and then address to the council the issue of increasing the availability of public toilets. I mean, those are fairly specific and concrete things that I'm not sure who counts them for us. Maybe the county knows. Maybe we need to find out from the county. Do they know how many there are and where there are? Anyway, those are the kinds of specific things that seems to me might be useful to do.
Okay,
Anyway.
thank you. Commissioner Shannon?
So on the question of the toilets, I know that you were part of it, Commissioner Vick and also Commissioner Cotto. We were part of a sort of subgroup that met with the city. They wanted us to be part of it in terms of increasing a lot of these mobile toilets. And so some of those have been placed already, and they're basically in there's 5 now that are permanent in Skid Row, and then there are mobile ones that are being placed in various like parking lots and that kind of thing, depending on the neighborhood. But I don't think we ever actually got a final report from them. So
No.
we were only included in the very first meeting, and then there was never a report back, and we were not asked to be in subsequent meetings. So that's, maybe we get a report back. But I do remember when we first met, we did get an inventory of and the issue was not necessarily just public toilets, but public toilets open at night.
24/7.
Yeah, 24/7. So you need access at night, that when buildings are closed and,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
that's no
the
point.
shelters
Yeah.
are closed to
Yeah.
people coming in, you definitely need to have access. So maybe we can get back to whoever was presiding over that committee. I think it was LASA was providing the inventory, and maybe we can do a report back at the next meeting.
And we talk about Skid Row, we talk about Skid Row, but you know, there's plenty of folks in the valley, around the train station there, in Venice, Lord knows, Hollywood. I don't know if those areas are getting attention or not. I really don't. Or San Pedro. I mean, anyway, just other than Skid Row is what I'm saying. We need to look.
So at the meeting, it was a prototype project, I believe. They had money for 3 areas, and they designated Skid Row, Venice, and Hollywood. And, you know, the people in the valley were saying, what about the valley? But they were saying, well, let's see if it works in these 3 areas, and we can expand it out. It wasn't just the county. It brought in all the city departments so that everybody could work together and, okay, not have all these hurdles to clear to get it out right away. And unfortunately, once again, it was a reaction because of the spread of hepatitis B, correct?
A, hepatitis A.
Hepatitis A, I'm sorry. Because of the fear of the spread of hepatitis A, it was a reaction. It wasn't preventative. It wasn't something, you know, done out of compassion. And now that that scare is not there, you know, maybe things have slowed down. But I truly believe we should get a follow-up and see
Now
what's
we're
going
after
on.
romaine lettuce, but anyway, is there some specific action that we could do? Susie, I mean, do we need a follow-up or an inventory or what's the next step type thing?
Yeah, and that would be, if I can follow up.
Yes.
That would be a request that we make as the commission to the head of the subcommittee that was working on it within the city. And it was a number of departments. LASA really was heading up the inventory part of it, and they should have all of the information. And also where they actually placed the mobile toilets in particular, because we know where they placed the actual permanent ones, along with wash stations. But we don't know where the mobile ones ended up, because I know that they were looking for nonprofits to open up their parking lots and that kind of thing. So it would be good to follow up just to see where we're at on that.
Sounds good. Commissioner Sharp?
My question to you, President Vick, is to hear a little bit about the specific role that you anticipate or foresee the commission playing in facilitating progress on these issues. There are infinite number of important issues, including the 3 that were identified in September and others have identified since. What I would love to hear more about is exactly how this particular group in this particular setting can play an effective role in making something different happen.
Good question, Commissioner Sharp, and that is actually the question that I was getting ready to pose to everyone. And I think that was my first question. So when Commissioner Shannon mentioned the 3 priorities from the retreat, so Chromium-6, these 3 things, okay, what about those 3 things? What are we doing with those 3 things? How do we move forward given the capacity? So I think that is my biggest concern. How are we going to get this work done? And the one with the public toilets actually sounds like something we can do immediately. We would just ask for an update, and if we feel like there are some that, you know what, they're not enough in this particular area, we can make a direct recommendation. That sounds like something we can do very quickly.
So to just try and pin down exactly what happens next on that,
Right.
the subject area seems directly related to the commission's mission and certainly seems of interest to everyone here, as best as I can tell. the way in which that happens is not likely to be at 6 p.m. on a Monday evening.
No.
And so my specific question is sort of, how do we use this time and space to drive progress on that? Or, alternately, does this time and space move to a time and space that coincides with the more likely way that an oversight function occurs? All the other city commissions I'm aware of, except the planning commissions in the neighborhoods, meet during the day because city department staff are primarily on the clock between 8 and 5 or so. And so, over 2.5 years, there's been very limited attendance from various department agency heads. There have been a couple presentations, but out of 30-plus meetings, there's been very few government staff that have been available. And so that's sort of a question in trying to pin down exactly what this group does. There certainly are other meetings that persons from here can attend and try and make voice heard at. How are you expecting to use this body in this space to make progress on that particular issue, which is certainly an important one to try and help with?
Right. Good question. And I don't know if that's something that is feasible, because as you said, they're not here. We can push the paperwork forward. We can write the letters. We can ask for the report and push something out, but then we have to wait. So I think that is something we need to think about.
I'm not sure that the appropriate city employee would ever not respond to us by email or by letter, and so we can get all the information we want. The real question is knowing the right information to ask for and what's going to be actionable. So it's not like other leaders in the city are not attempting to address the homelessness issue. There's hundreds of millions of dollars have been set aside to do that with paid staff and protocols. The question is, how do we respond to the health issue of homelessness other than making a statement to the city, which is basically well known by every member of the city council and the mayor's office?
Right.
I mean, the mayor's office and the controller's office and the city attorney and each of the 15 council districts all know that homelessness is probably the largest problem addressing the city right now. The mayor just gave a speech in New Hampshire saying that it's the #1 problem and the thing that he's addressing the most. So people are addressing it. I think that we should address it. I'm just not sure, and I've said this for the 2.5 years I've been on this commission, that I'm not sure a part-time intern helps us get the data that we need to make an intelligent recommendation to the city council or to the mayor. And then until we have adequate funding for staff to do the research for us, it is unlikely we're going to be the most articulate based on scientific and or the appropriate data.
Commissioner Sharp?
True. And on 2 of the subject areas that have been identified as part of this discussion tonight, the analytical information has been done, both in terms of the proximity of housing and freeways. There's been several reports, including one that's in my packet here that someone must have given me at one of these meetings. And there was an extensive, I think, CAO's office analysis on the bathrooms issue, right, that brought together public health information, loss information. So in a couple of these areas, there's actually a rich data trove available. And what I think I hear being proposed is the commission attempt to play some sort of accountability or oversight role to encourage accelerated progress on these areas where there's both information and a strong political will. And the question I'm asking is whether that can functionally occur in an effective way at 6 p.m. on a Monday, or if for 2 of these issues where there's a clear city mandate and there's department staff to be working, does a subsequent meeting have to be moved to a daytime setting when there's potentially media available and or a variety of city staff, including council staff and others, to witness the exchange about the lack of progress, which would be the more likely setting in which the commission could confer some notion of oversight that might accelerate progress. Because I believe that's the most likely role on these 2 issues. On other issues, there's absolutely a gap from a fact-gathering standpoint where there would be additional resources needed. But in least two of the ones that Commissioner Shannon lifted up, I think there's been some minimum level of fact gathering that's been
Right.
conducted, and we're trying to take an oversight role. And I'm trying to ask the question of whether that can be the effective role at this time and place.
So would that be something like a hearing during the day where those folks that are have a vested interest or playing a role in these issues, where we all are convened and we have this conversation? That's what that sounds like to me, potentially.
I think that's how other commissions are playing an oversight role. There's toggling between different roles. Some roles are identifying new issues. Some issues we've played a role, or the commission's played a role in bringing in community voices, as was true on oil extraction, right, where there's, I don't know, 70 speakers, something like that.
Yeah.
Lifted up the issue from a different vantage point. There's different types of strategies used to make progress on different issues.
Right.
And what I'm trying to identify is there's a common thread between these two issues, which is there's a great deal of analytical work that's been done inside the building, and there's a need for some accountability function. And
Okay.
I'm doubting whether that can occur in this time.
Got
That's
it.
the only thing I'm trying to focus on.
Okay. Fair enough. So then perhaps, thinking about what Commissioner Shannon said about sort of these mini reports, or this little bit of documentation about sort of where our stance is, what the issues are, perhaps that could be the launching point for potentially a hearing or some other way that we could do something during the day, hold these folks accountable, some oversight. That would seem to make sense to me, where we think about what our position are, or what our concerns are about this, whatever, any of these issues, get that on some paper. This is what we want to do. Oh, there are not enough toilets in Santa Monica. I know Santa Monica's not in the city, but we want to advocate for that. We get that in writing, we figure that out, we've done some research and looked at it, and now we will then have some sort of convening. I don't know if that sounds like a reasonable strategy for folks. Commissioner Shannon?
Well, I think it's a good strategy because it also helps us at least point to some written material for an annual report. So at least we're moving forward, and we're at least trying to comply with what the mandate is in the ordinance, which I don't think we can just ignore. I mean, we're not really in a position to be ignoring an ordinance. Is that correct?
And if I could ask the city attorney, what happens when the commission doesn't comply?
Commissioner Mandel, we'll get back to you on it. If there is a list of repercussions or no repercussions. I can, off the top of my head, I do not know, but I can report back to you or get back to you on that.
Yeah, that would be great.
Sure.
We need to know what the
Absolutely.
consequences are. Because we do have a capacity issue. I don't know how we would separate and split up this work.
They drag us in front of the city council and yell at us for not making a report when they haven't given us any money for staff to do the due diligence that we need to make a proper report. I mean, let's be real. If we write reports that are not based on data, we're doing a disservice to the people of the city of Los Angeles. If we allow an intern who's supposed to be educating him or herself as opposed to being a secretary for us to collect data and write a report, that's inappropriate also. So the truth of the matter is that unless we do the proper due diligence to respond to the issues at hand, and regurgitating what's been presented at the commission meetings isn't really a report.
Right.
So going back to what you said before, President Vick, about actionable items, yes, we had a retreat in September that presented 3 issues that we wanted to deal with, but unless we get the information that is properly backed up, perfect example is we don't really know how many public toilets are open in the city of Los Angeles and what hours they're open. Does somebody really know that information? If we're going to address it, then to what degree that even notifying the city council of those number of bathrooms, does it matter? I mean, are we making political statements or making rhetoric to motivate the city council? I mean, what's the importance of the report other than the action that we've done over the year between the previous report? I mean, we've had several action items, and the report really should be very brief. We had this number of presentations from these wonderful people who represent the city of Los Angeles. We've become educated about the issues that have been presented to us. We've had several action items that have been voted upon, and I believe, my recollection is, almost all of those were unanimous. There might be a couple that were not for some reason, but mostly we report that information. That's the report of what this commission has done in the past year. I will admit that it's not as robust as we would like it to be, but I think that's directly related to the fact that we don't have the resources to make it robust.
Commissioner Shannon?
I do want to point out that our last report actually wasn't funded by the city. It was funded by AIDS Healthcare Foundation, and there are potentially, maybe even that foundation, along with other foundations, who would be willing to help provide funds for a report. So I think given that we've done it that way, it seems like, I mean, we've proved that it's doable. And also, we didn't rely on city staff for that either. We contracted with the Institute for Community Health and Wellbeing at Cal State Northridge, and they provided a lot of the research, the data. They even went out and took photos. All the photos that are in here, they took those because they wanted us to be able to own that property. So, you know, there is an alternative model other than just going and, you know, trying to get more money from the city. So I'm just putting that out there since that's how we've done it in the past.
Commissioner Sharp?
According to Article 2 of the ordinance that establishes this august body, there are actually 4 reports required. One is an annual health services plan, setting forth information regarding the health needs of the city. Then there's a required strategic plan to describe how those health needs would be met. There is also the much discussed report to City Council on the city's progress towards meeting the goals, which I think is what we're calling the report. That's described here as an annual health services plan. There's also a report requested to city and county regarding the ways to improve a city contract, or no, county contracts based on a review of a representative sample of health services contracts executed by the county for services provided in the city. And there's another report requested regarding an evaluation request on an annual basis whether the health needs of residents are best served by the city continuing to contract with the county. So if we were to take a literal reading of the ordinance, there's an extraordinary number of documents which have slightly different terms but are all various versions of reports that are to be requested. And my suggestion is in the context of resources, some of which might be available from outside sources upon request, that there would be some effort to prioritize which of these functions is most likely to achieve some positive benefit in order to allocate resources, time, and effort accordingly, and in particular in some alignment with which of these issue areas is most likely to benefit from some sort of written document, either in the form of a plan or a report. So there are a number of different things in the ordinance that I would say the Commission has not complied with the letter of which, and I think welcome your guidance regarding prioritizing which of those is most valuable to pursue.
Right. So the one regarding the contracts, we've never been provided samples of contracts to even look at, and I don't know who's supposed to give us those contracts.
There was only one.
Okay, that
Which
one,
was the original
contract.
one, and we were presented with it and looked over it.
It was
And we
fine.
went to the various departments and asked them if there was any issue fulfilling that, and no one got back to us except for, I think, one department, and there was not an issue, so.
That's a different contract. So there's 2 sets of contracts mentioned in the ordinance. One is the contract between the city and the counties,
Okay.
about which there was a survey of city departments and there was no response. Separately, there's a separate item, section 8.274A4, says, review on an annual basis a representative sample of health services contracts executed by the county which provide health services in the city. I believe this is regarding contracts to service providers that implement services. So it's a different set of contracts to be looked at. And, there's...
And we haven't received any samples to look at to make that, okay, okay,
That's sort of a separate
right.
report. There's the health services plan, there's a strategic plan, and then a report to city council on progress toward goals. There's a number of different potential documents to produce.
Right.
And I welcome any input regarding how to possibly rank or prioritize which of these is most likely to drive progress on resident health. There will potential strategies or potential ways to approach the issues.
Commissioner Shannon?
So the presentation to the council is actually in the control of the council president. So we made several requests when I was president of this commission to give a presentation before council, and they just never agendized our commission. And there were many, many attempts at several calls to the office to speak with the chief of staff. However, there was a PowerPoint that was created for that presentation. So that has been created. And we actually gave that presentation to the health committee. And it took, I don't know, about an hour. I think Commissioner Cotto was there at the time. So that took about an hour to go through. And then the health committee was going to make some recommendations to council based on our PowerPoint presentation and the written report.
Okay. So here's what I think we should do. Because, again, we're not at full capacity, limited funding. It does sound like there's an opportunity. I don't know. I haven't reached out to CSUN. Maybe we can reach out to them again for some help. But the idea of them smaller, and literally when I say smaller, 2-page, about these different health issues, where we feel like there needs to be some next steps, some action taken, bare minimum. We don't have a lot of help right now for that kind of, to do anything any bigger than that on these issues. Chromium-6, housing near freeways, STD, STI, homelessness, specifically around public toilets. That is sort of where I feel that we could probably get something done. Again, to your point, how effective, or, what is the push, or, okay, well, now what? Are we just reiterating sort of what is already known? That is a concern of mine. But if we're going to get in trouble for not creating a report, then I think we need to at least acknowledge that these were some things that we're concerned about, and create, again, like a 2-page fact sheet front back about what the issues are and what our concern is regarding those issues. Now, how that work gets done, we'll need to have a conversation about that separately. I would like to hear what you all think about that. Because you guys are going to have to help write it. Right?
What's the content you're envisioning would go in? I'm still missing sort of what's the what. Is it a
Right.
statement of we've passed these resolutions and the state departments haven't acted? Is it a statement of need regarding the community health challenges? Is it a sort of political statement? What's the substantive way in which this content changes things?
So my thought of this is, we know that there is a need for public toilets. There were several meetings held regarding this issue. We have been made aware that there are these many public toilets in the city. However, there are not enough in this section, and we would like this to happen. We recommend that this happen. Again, not sure how much weight that will have, but if we are going to be penalized or dinged, which we don't know yet about not creating this report, I would rather us do that than nothing at all.
Well, just
But I
may
do want to hear.
encourage you to consider that I think the reason to do it is to make some community health benefit as opposed to comply with the ordinance. And I think there may be an opportunity in the area of public health and sanitation for this commission to lift up what's probably an extraordinary gap between the current status of those, sanitation facilities and the budget needed to close it. So
Got it.
I'd be happy for us to focus on it, and happy for us to lift up that gap, and if there's original work that's been done by both LAHSA and I think CAO and CLA, because there's a council motion on it, there may be an opportunity for us to shine a spotlight on the insufficient progress or the slow progress or the lack of geographic sensitivity regarding, there's a number of things that are not being done well that this group could draw attention to.
Right.
And I think that would be potentially valuable to do. I don't know about others, feel unprepared to say what the status is. I mean, that did come up many months ago, and several of you took the time to learn more about it. We're a few months further down the road on that, and it would be helpful to know what the specific problem is that we can help focus on in order to devise a recommendation as
Got
to
it.
what could be progress.
Okay.
President Vitt,
Yes, Commissioner.
you said that we have an intern available to us?
He's sitting back there. with the hat
Yes.
on.
Because, yeah, I agree with Commissioner Mandel that, our recommendation should be based on data. Someone has to do that for, I don't think we have time to be in these three areas. At least we could maybe give the framework of what kind of data we want from, the county or the state or whatever, but
Right.
still, unless we have that person to do that research for us first, it's going to be hard for us to make a good recommendation that's just based on what we reported last year and what we said we're going to do, so let's do it again. But
Right. Agreed. And then here's the other thing I'm thinking about. I know we have 3 issues, and then you brought up, Kato, you brought up adding in homelessness in the public toilets. Can we just pick one? Can we just say we want to, this thing is important for this commission for now, and this is what we're going to focus our efforts on as far as whatever the write-up looks like, whatever the action looks like, instead of trying to do all 4, considering the fact that we are understaffed.
My understanding is we can do whatever we want to do as long as the commission agrees by majority.
Okay.
We did in our retreat pick 3 things that at that time in September appeared after conversation of the members of the commission who were present to be the priorities to address going forward for the year. For a report and or for recommendations to the city and the city council, we can make recommendations independent of the report based upon data that we found from presentations to us or accumulated from other city departments. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be doing that in real time.
Sure.
We don't have to wait for the annual report.
Agreed. Okay.
I think there's also a role to play here for advocacy groups. I mean, it concerns me that we're always talking about departments, but I guarantee you for each one of these issues, there's an advocacy group that's armed with a lot of data already that is pushing for policies to be passed within the city. So I think we should be, to whatever extent possible, we should be utilizing all the information that a lot of the advocacy groups have as well.
Okay.
And one other thing,
Yes, Commissioner.
as far as the access to, portable toilets and things like that, in our report, we already have a recommendation, an action plan, the background, and, it hasn't gone forward.
Say the last word.
I
Well,
think
I
it
mean,
has.
Well, as far as,
We don't know.
okay, let me restate that. I don't want to be redundant with what we put as the background information. That part has to be something beyond what we did. And then, get like the,
Right, and so that would be, I think, what we were talking about. Well, hey, we had those meetings, we went to the meetings, and they talked about it. What happened? Because we didn't hear back. Commissioner Shannon?
Right, so after we hear back, we can make recommendations on specific areas where there are gaps. So you know, the city's gone this far, it's not going to be far enough. I mean, we already know that. That was already actually acknowledged in the meeting that we were in. And so, you know, it's helpful too to identify specific areas where it can be expanded. And I think that's maybe a role that we can play.
Okay. So it sounds like immediate next steps, at least for that issue, is to just get an update. We need to figure out what happened. In regards to a written, did you have a?
Well, just to try and pin down exactly what that looks like, my suggestion would be to contact whoever facilitated the intra-department
Yep.
dialogue and/or a number of the community stakeholders that have voice in this. LA Can and other groups have been elevating this for years. It'd be great to hear more to figure out if we can't get them to come June whatever 9th at 6 p.m. My recommendation is that you take some step to adjust the meeting time so that we would actually have those people. We've gone a number of rounds of trying to get key people in there. If we're going to react to their update and/or try and take some oversight function that might make them look bad for not having gone far enough or allocated enough money in the budget, I think we owe them the ability to actually come to the meeting, which may require some adjustment to a daytime.
Okay. Okay. That would be June 11th. Second Monday, June 11th. Okay. All right.
Is this going to require a motion? No. Agendize?
Yeah. Okay. So I think we should just start there. Let's start there, step one, get that, make that happen, and then we can move forward. And I'll have the intern help with sort of getting some background documentation. He can assist with that. Any other thoughts?
If we're going to have a daytime meeting, it'd be great to get someone to come from the planning department to let us know what happened with their response to our directive, our policy on housing adjacent to freeways. We held, I think, 2, maybe even 3 sessions on it. There were different experts, speakers. It seemed to be a consensus policy among this group to try and adopt some protective barrier, and it'd be great to know what's happened, if anything. So again, if we're going to have people in the daytime, it'd just be great to get all those relevant implementers so that if we were to do a report, we have their sort of response on the record.
And if they can't come during the evening times of our scheduled meetings, though I'm willing to be available on Mondays and Wednesdays during the day for meetings, but if these full-time employees of the city can't, they can send us a memo with an update that is put into the record for our meetings that are in the evening.
Perfect. Okay. Other comments, thoughts? Questions? Okay. We got something to move forward with. Thank you.
Can you, I'm sorry, summarize what we agreed on just so we're all clear on
So that we are aiming to have our June meeting, June 11th meeting during the day, so that we can address the following topics. The homelessness issue is specifically in regards to the toilets availability, public toilet availability, and the housing issue and the proximity to freeways issue, so that we can invite both city folks and our community partners so that we can get updates. And from what it sounds like to me, what we're aiming towards is once we get those updates and an understanding of what's happening, we figure out where those gaps are. Hey, you guys, we need to allocate more money for this thing, so this will help inform our next step. That's what that sounds like.
the county people. Is that yes or no?
They can be part of it. I'll put them on the list as well. Yes, Commissioner Shannon.
This is just a request, not a motion, but if there's any way we could have that daytime meeting around 10 or so, because I'm leaving to go out of town later on that day, so it would just be helpful. I mean, I'd like to be there, particularly on the homeless issues.
Sure. I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, thank you all. I have scribbled on like 4 pages of notes, so.
Junior, our next meeting.
Okay.
Instead of it.
What happened to my other paper? Moving to agenda item number 2, items for future discussion. Not sure if we just kind of talked about our items for future discussion, but I will take public comment. Wayne?
see future discussion, you have no staff. Why isn't the mayor giving you any staff? He's running around all over the place with his friend, Glenn Dake, for the record. That's his de facto husband, for the record, because as we all know, the mayor and me have something in common. We've never slept with his wife, so that's one thing we have in common. And you see, these are the things we need to discuss in the future. When the city gets sued for civil rights violations, why doesn't the city attorney have an outside counsel and an insurance carrier to provide a neutral ground to try to resolve the case? You had a homeless man, Brother Africa, who was put on the ground, taken into custody and handcuffed, and then, because he's black and he reached his hand up to give it to the officer to put into the second cuff, another white officer shot him dead. And then the city attorney says, let's go to the jury and see what the jury says. And they said, fuck you, 42 U.S.C. 1983 civil rights violation. Now the city's going to pay them $2 million. Why does it have to be $2 million? The attorney offered $500,000 after the murder in 2015, and your city attorney says, no, let's litigate it. The family had to come here from Africa. These are real Africans. You know, they had to come here from Africa. This guy was homeless. And you know, the interesting part, he got out of federal jail for robbing a goddamn bank in Ventura County. And then, because he's black, he gets shot by a cop. Now, that's what we should talk about. Why do we have a gay mayor running for president, and why are black people being shot for being black?
Adam Cohen.
Hello, my name is Adam Cohen, AIDS Healthcare Foundation. In addition to the items that you plan on discussing regarding homelessness and access to toilets, I think, of course, sexually transmitted infections, particularly chlamydia, gonorrhea, and syphilis, should perpetually be addressed. The California Department of Public Health today actually released its 2017 data. And just to end with some shock, so in 2017, there were 218,710 cases of chlamydia, 75,450 cases of gonorrhea, and 13,605 cases of syphilis, as well as 278 cases of congenital syphilis, of which there were a handful of deaths associated with syphilis among infants. What is most shocking about it is for chlamydia, we are at the highest we have been since 1990. For gonorrhea, we are the highest we have been since 1988. And for syphilis, we are the highest we have been since 1987. So the rates are only getting worse. They are not getting better, and the funding, at least on a national scale, has entirely stagnated. So we are using the same funds to prevent infections at rates that are higher than we would have ever imagined. In Los Angeles specifically, I believe it was 1998 or maybe 1999 in the county where there were maybe 98 cases or so remaining of syphilis, and we are now up to thousands. So something we thought would be eradicated a couple decades ago is now coming back with a vengeance. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other items for future discussion? Oh, do you have I don't have a card. I didn't know I had to submit to. Yeah, yeah. Can you get her a card?
We'll let you start speaking now, but we'll have you
Okay.
fill a card out after you
I
answer.
will fill a card out for sure.
Yeah.
Just as some of the things you have been talking about, it is extremely common for staff from the mayor's office, the council offices, staff from the planning department, and just about anywhere else you can think of, to go to all sorts of evening meetings. I know this because I go to them. They are at every neighborhood council meeting, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens of those. So it is common practice for them to go to evening meetings. If they aren't coming here, you're the only ones that aren't getting them. for things in the future, you know, advocacy isn't necessarily the same thing as scholarship. The basic information for the things that you're talking about exists. You don't have to recreate the wheel. You just take the basic information because the city knows the toilets are needed. That's why they're doing a pilot project. They have all of that information. You don't have to reinvent it. And you go and you say, you've got to do something about this information you have. You know these things. You don't have to invent the wheel every time. Or you'll just be here inventing the wheel forever. The other thing is you can ask for things to be presented at city council. You can go to city council and you can present your reports. All of you don't have to go. You can ask for that kind of time. I was with John here. We were on a CPAC together. He was the chair. And we met in the evening, and city staff was there every time we met, several of them. And they took things up in city council, did they not? Whether everyone could be there. So there's a mechanism for doing all that. I don't know why they haven't informed you of it, but it exists.
Thank you. Any discussion? No, I say, okay. Perfect. Okay.
Items for future discussion. For the July, not for June, because that will be our hearing, but for the July meeting, I'd like to take up the initiative that's going to be on the ballot in November for the repeal of Costa-Hawkins. So if we can look at that, because I know the city council will be taking that up sometime in the future.
Okay. Any other comments? No?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All righty. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? Meeting is adjourned.